Order.
40 grand a year.
Chief, if it's okay with you, I missed a hand. Molly, you can come on up and make a quick statement if you like. Thank you, Chief.
My name is Molly Payne. I would just like to piggyback off of him. His statement is, I do feel that the town right now is holding the fire department hostage. I was listening to Diane talk about in the early days, and that was during my childhood, that I watched parents and uncles and all relatives of all of us put their time and effort into trying to create something. That was 40 years ago. By saying that we're gonna hold the fire department hostage and perhaps not have it pass is, we're going backwards. We have which I agree that all are valuable, the school department, we aren't overriding on that this year. This is one of the only entities in the town that actually makes money, that actually creates a fund. If a teacher, what does the teacher give back to us? We put that money in, right? Because it's a valuable resource. What we have for a rescue squad and fire department is more valuable than education, because you can't get an education if we're not here. And by not having a call fire department and rescue squad, that's what's gonna happen. I know 2 of my family members have been saved from people in this town. And what you're saying is, what you're putting forth is that you guys are, you're okay with putting that it may not be here. If we do not have it, and we have to have another town come in, the estimated response time is, I don't know, I'm not part of the department, but I can guarantee it's 5 to 7 minutes at least more. If it was your loved one, think of that, because 5 or 7 minutes can be life and death. And that's what we're putting on the table here tonight and moving forward. And I don't understand, we keep continually talk about the override for the fire department. Why aren't we doing the override for one of the other departments? And I think I got it answered without even asking, because it won't pass. If we have an override that the town will have to grab onto, then it will pass. And that's where I feel that this is these people that show up, and Chief Dickey figured it out, how can we get every volunteer that has been volunteering for the past 20 years to keep doing what they've been doing, but we're just gonna keep kicking them. That's what we're doing to them. And at some point, I don't see a teacher saying, you know what, I'll be on call tonight. Or I don't see someone from the highway department put a truck down. And all of these things are valuable things, but again, I don't see them saying, well, I'll take 1 out of 6 nights a week and just be on call. We don't. So I really think about your family and how many of you have family in this town. And when it comes down to it, and you need someone to show up at your house, call a teacher. Call someone from the highway barn, because that's what we're gonna be doing. And I think that those things are what we need to think about is, why are we picking this department? And is that a question I could ask? Why is it this department that's getting picked?
Go ahead.
Somebody once asked Willie Sutton why he robbed banks, because that's where the money is. There is not $376,000 elsewhere in the budget that is separate and distinct.
The school department doesn't have a budget?
I think we need to get past this idea that the schools,
Get into
Yeah, we can't.
this is not a school department. In Winchendon or Sutton or other communities, I could sit with the superintendent and say, here's what we can give you next year. and that's it. You're in a school district. You tried the nuclear approach, didn't work too well. We've had some overrides here. They are several of the ones that passed. But that has to be done in partnership. And in the meeting the other night, it was pretty clear to me that your partner in the other community doesn't have any great feeling for the problems this community's facing. And I didn't get the sense that the members of the school district had any great sympathy towards the problems either. So if they say, this is the number, at the end of the day,
That's their number.
it's the number. I've been through this many times. And so in addition to the 376, that the budget's out of kilter, even if we find it someplace else, you're gonna have to figure out how to close the gap for the school number as well. And so the always difficult thing is I have these discussions, and someone will point to this, and then somebody else points to that, and somebody, you know, because every service is valuable to somebody. I think this is just the start of the conversation. I don't want to think this is the end of it.
Right.
The proposal that we've put forth, it may not be able to get consensus
Correction, you put forth. I
That-
didn't put this
that
forth.
I put forth.
I just want that to be clear. I had nothing to do with this.
Well, using the editorial weed, this is the proposal that I've put forth. And it's my recommended budget, but it's the select board's at the end of the day. And if there's 376 someplace else, plus the schools, terrific. As long as you understand you're gonna face this issue next year, and the year after,
And the year after that.
and forevermore.
So we'll gamble not having a rescue squad for that?
I mean, I've laid out my reasoning as best I can.
Yeah, I don't think there's I mean, it's not that it's a gamble, it's, you have to look at the budget as a whole and see where, revenue is and where new growth is and how all the budgetary responses come into play with all the departments, not just, one department. And then see where things, lie at that point. And
Mr.
then-
Chairman?
Yes.
If I may, this is a gamble, because the outcome is not certain. It's not a guarantee that we're gonna get this override passed, so therefore, we are gambling this ambulance service. You said it wasn't a gamble, but it is.
Oh, yeah, everybody has their own perception, I
Even if it
guess.
was 99.9% likely, it's still a gamble at the end of the day.
Yes, yes, Molly.
So if we did an override on the highway department, and the override didn't go through, would we shut down the streets?
That's what you have to do.
Pretty
Yes.
Well,
much.
no, we would have to
Is,
figure out
is
what
that what
else
you would
to
do?
We would have to figure
Unless we
something
had a
else.
backup budget.
Unless we had a backup budget. That's pretty much what's gonna happen
Yep.
and stuff like that in every department. This is my third year going through a budget, and it's never easy. That first year, you learn so much about what you have to do. And I totally support the fire, the police, the highway, all of them. And I sat and have to say that what the school's gonna do, the school is gonna do, and it's gonna hurt a lot of people and a lot of other services, and that's why I got up and spoke the other night. They want this money and they want X, Y, and Z, but the school is not the only thing in Templeton. You have a fire department and you have police that wanna respond. They've been running short, I don't know how long, and
Long as I've been
fire, I was here when you were here and we were doing it, and we will go backwards if ALS doesn't pass. But it's the numbers and it's the funding, and this was one of the bigger ones. I mean, if we're gonna support ALS, which is what the voters in this town voted for, those same voters need to come out
I'm not gonna tell you.
and make sure ALS passes in the town of Templeton. I don't know how else to say it.
Yes, Molly.
Do you
Last time.
realize that if ALS doesn't pass?
We realize what's
that
gonna
that's
happen.
No department, no,
Yes,
So,
We
through
are
the chairman.
fully aware of what's gonna happen if
Through
it
the
doesn't
chairman.
pass.
yes.
So if we close, if we just close, so, rec, senior, services in the library, it comes to 292, 781. So I can take, now that doesn't include benefits or anything, so the recreation doesn't even count. Some of the library doesn't even count, they don't have benefits, so it's still not gonna be enough. So I could propose to take a, I don't know, part-time police officer away from the chief.
A highway guy.
You're not,
Highway
you're
guy.
not figuring in
Highway.
buildings and grounds into that, are
So
you?
now I
Because you're
still
gonna
have
lose
to,
revenue.
right, so now we're gonna, right, so
You're gonna lose revenue.
I still have to, it's not enough, we still need another I don't even know.
You gotta take
So
100
either
Point of order.
way,
Yes, point
We
of order,
still
point of
have
order.
to-
You're not including the building and grounds number in that. You're taking the budget
I'm
number,
just
but
saying
there
I
are,
still have
you'd have to
to-
mothball these buildings, because there's somebody that's showing up and taking care of those buildings on a regular basis. If you mothball them, you're eliminating buildings and grounds from that, which is gonna come up around 315.
okay, so we.
But
we
she's
close
also
them all.
including 125,000 you can't count. Because in the COA budget, if she used the entirety of that, is all the MART money. And
Oh,
once
that's
you
right,
don't
so now I have to take
have
away
that
all
expense, you lose
revenue.
that revenue.
Right, so either way, we have to rethink all of it.
I don't think you're gonna be able to solve how to close the gap early on until you've been through the departmental budgets.
Right, so we have to
You've had an
listen to everybody
opportunity-
first.
You've had an opportunity to
not
really
easy.
talk about the
not.
alternatives.
Right.
Because it's not just moving a couple pieces.
No, it's not.
I agree. The only thing I disagree with is that we've already decided that the override is gonna be with the fire
No,
department.
let's be real clear. This is what I decided to propose. This community has had 114 override capital exclusion and debt exclusions. You passed 22. 22. I have proposed 12 in my time under Prop 2.5, and I got 10 passed. So I have a fairly good sense of not only where the money is, but what is good strategy. If there are other choices, and you didn't have ALS until 2 years ago. It's an unfortunate turn of events. There may be other solutions, but please don't forget, you have to close this 376, and you have to close whatever the school district asks you for.
And currently
Above
that's
150, and
485.
you have to close whatever Monty Tech asks you,
We don't even know
above.
what that is.
I forget now, 15. So I think that this is really just the start of the conversation.
It's just the beginning.
And I'm gonna suggest at some point, Mr. Chairman, that we probably should have just an open public meeting and have people come in and, and there may only be 6, like Jeff says, but it is about process. I think that's important.
Don't try.
And I think that,
Right.
But don't be disillusioned that this Board of Selectmen does not care about the ALS, because everybody at this table.
Please don't.
I live in this town, I have 5 kids in this town, and they're all in the school district, so believe me, I care about ALS, I care about the fire department, I care about the police department, I care about all the services in here, that's why I ran. And that's why the advisory committee sits there, because we all care, But what's the best course of action? We're at $16.72 a thousand, while everybody around it that touches Templeton's at $20 or better, and don't have the services that we have. And that's the reality of it. And we can't jump really fast, because then it affects all of us, even me. I mean, I own a house here, I have to pay taxes just like everybody else. And I know my tax rate's going up as high as I'm projecting them to be, but what are we gonna do? We should be at $18, $19, $20 a thousand right now, but we're not. We're at $16.72, and we're supporting all these services that are out there right now. And when I first ran, I told the public, I said, you only have 2 choices. This is easy math. You either increase revenue or you decrease services. That's all you can do. There's only 2 things you can do. You can't do anything more than that. So if the money's not there, then guess what? The services have to go away until the money comes back. We're not picking on anybody.
I completely agree with that, but I also agree with that we're putting a whole lot up in the air that is unknown by doing it the way we're doing it. And that is not just caring about each department, it's caring about a life safety department.
I understand, but, and again, I'm not gonna
And yeah, I mean,
I'm not gonna sit here and say, well, once we lose AOS, there will be no ambulances in town. Obviously, we would have to come up with some type of backup plan in order to maintain the services and some type of safety within the town. I mean, just because the ambulance, say AOS didn't pass, let's God forbid, say it doesn't pass. Will I be, I was gonna swear, will I be mad? Of course I would. Of course I would, because that's a service that I depend on, my family depends on, but doesn't pass. What's gonna happen? I mean, obviously, a private sector ambulance would have to come in here. I mean, it's inevitable. Somebody would have to come in and provide service. Am I right, chief? Something would have to happen.
That's gonna cost.
I don't know. I don't know.
You don't have any money to pay for it.
But right.
I've been here 18 months, and I don't understand, I'm sorry. You guys don't have any money.
Right. That's the bottom line. But thank you, Ma, I appreciate your time and efforts. All right, Chief,
you,
you're up
Ma.
next. Thank you, Chief. Sorry about that.
No problem. Okay,
Uh,
let's see.
Where are we at? Page
You have a little summary of the police department request
Thank
budget overview.
77? Thank you. Oh, great, thank you, Chief.
Yeah,
77.
the overview is on page 80, I believe.
77. Your memo?
the mission statement is on
77.
page 77.
I'd like to ask Eric to come up for a moment
Sure.
and explain to you, this is part of the financial management plan and planning grant from the state under the Community Compact. And I would like Eric to take no more than 3 minutes to kind of give you a brief overview of what this is all about.
All right, so we had people from the Collins Institute, University of Massachusetts come in.
Can you speak up just a little bit more, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
And what they did was sit down and meet with every department head and review their department and go over, trying to develop a template so when someone comes in and looks at the budget in a specific department, they can understand it and understand the services that they provide, their mission, and I'll just go through some of the highlights from page 77 to 79. So on page 77, we have a mission statement for the department and their values and a vision statement. This is to outline what they do, the core services that they provide, and what citizens should expect from that department.
Okay.
And under the department description, this the specific services that they do, and if someone is looking at it from off the street, you could say, you might learn a thing or two of what that particular department provides as far as service. Then we get into accomplishments, goals. So we currently have the FY17 accomplishments from last fiscal year, and we also have goals that are in progress for this current fiscal year and goals going forward for this coming year, fiscal year 19. After that, you have the service provision data. This is to document and show what the department is doing over the past year. And then after that, you have personnel summary table. This is to outline how the department is kind of structured as far as personnel. So police, they have a chief, 2 sergeants, patrol officers, and then dispatch. And that would vary between department to department, of course. And the last portion is the organizational chart. This is to show how it's structured and a chain of command and how things are run on a
That
daily
is not, the
basis.
table, the organization table's not been finished yet.
Yes. But once this is completed, then that would be included in this template.
Great.
So the object is to try to create a more citizen-friendly, shorter, more understandable explanation of what's the whole point of having this department, what are the services they provide, some measurables, and what is it that they have done with your money as taxpayers, and what is it they propose to do with the taxpayers' money. You'll see one more when you get the development services over the coming 2 weeks or so here. We'll get your reaction to that, kind of circle back with UMass to work, to polish off the balance, and depending upon your reaction, make it part of the annual budget process.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have to say, Chief, that this was extremely well-written. And I love it.
Yeah, I have
I
to
was
say,
like,
this is nice.
wowed. So, job well done.
Thank you.
I would love to see everyone do this. So, and the Department of Developmental Services did an excellent job as well. So I would like to see everyone do this.
Actually, most of them have. Some are in various stages of development. We picked out the two that we thought were furthest along and best demonstrated what we were
Thank you.
trying to do, so that you could really kind of concentrate on those. Thank you, Eric.
Chief.
Great. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this before we go on to the money matters?
I have to say, 13,355 police calls, I was just wowed, and, 90, restraining orders, and that further, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time, like, really coming up with a word. For as long as I have been a selectwoman, I have asked, maybe not the first year because I was learning, I have asked for a police officer. And mostly because of that, and it really drove home, for me. I'm gonna get emotional because I've been through this. That you need someone else to be on that call. And that one of these days you're gonna get another police officer. Wow. If I have any say in it.
I appreciate that.
And I'm sorry that you don't.
We have needs, but also other departments have needs, and the town will get to where.
I
we need to
understand
get
that,
to
but
eventually.
every year, I remember the year that you said, I will lay that aside. But these are the most, and most of these calls are at night, are they not?
Yes.
Yeah. And you have a police officer who has to make a choice of saving someone or going, you know, that's just not a position that they should be in.
I think we're on agreement on that. Thank you, Diane. Going on to personnel, chief?
Yes, so you have my request budget overview. Under personnel, you will see that there's a $31,780 increase on the bottom line from
Mhm.
last year. The major portion of that is because the town is moving to a 53-week work year.
Yes.
And so it's 52.2 this year.
Mhm.
So that affected virtually every line. That's where we came up. There was also slight increases under the CBA to employee steps and longevity. If we move on to employee support, you will see that there is a $500 increase to training, registration, and fees. The state 2 years ago mandated that all police officers, including part-time officers, are required to take 40 hours of mandatory training a year. An additional 40 hours at the department's request, so it's 80 hours in a year. 40 hours is mandatory from the MPTC.
Mhm.
So that's to meet any training, requests that the officers put in for that we might have to meet. You have to send out the firearms instructor, you have to send out who's also the taser instructor. And that's for that course. 600 increase the chief's trainings. Unfortunately, chief's trainings are more expensive than the regular officers' training, and I'm mandated for the same training that the officers are mandated. They do not cut the corners just because we get into the head office.
The admin role.
So, you'll see $415 increase for a longevity stipend. We had a dispatcher reach the required years of service for longevity. Move on to purchase and sales. purchase the services.
Hold on 1 second, Chief. Does anybody have any questions with this?
No, we're gonna go through the.
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
You will see there is a $2,000 increase to the ACO services, that's per agreement, that's the animal control officer that we share with Templeton. You'll see there is a $2,000 decrease to the criminal justice information system. They made some adjustments to how they do everything, there was actually a decrease in the service. Nick was just to inform you what that stands for, that's the National Crime Information Center. That's where we send all our crime data off to the FBI National Service, where they keep all their databases. There's a $171 increase to IMC TriTech, that is the department, and the dispatch CAD operating software. That's also the software that, through grants, that we're upgrading the fire department. We have Code Red, which is our reverse 911 system. However, when we go over the budget, you will see that that is zeroed out for Code Red. There is now a $8,000 line item for what's called TY Connect. It's a better service. Code Red was rather
Metered.
limited.
Yeah.
We could basically send out 6 calls in a year. That was it. Otherwise, we would go over and have to pay more. With that additional $2,000 increase to TY Connect, we have unlimited access, and we are actually also offering that up to Phillipston through the agreement that we have with them. You'll see $1,660 increase on the printer copier. That is also moved out, that is moved into the IT, master IT for the town, because that's a town contract that all the departments went to with their copiers.
Excellent.
$1,518 increase to the Avaya, which is our in-house phone system. That's the upgrade in the service agreement. And then we have a $300 increase for the repeater lines. There are 2 hard lines that go from TC Templeton Center Fire Station to Johnson Ave, and also from the Baldwinsville Fire Station and Johnson Ave for our communication system. $100 increase in department issued cell phone and the mobile transfer data units. Those are the laptops that are in the cruisers. It's just the connection with the Wi-Fi's that we need to have the service. On supplies, last year we had a rather lengthy discussion on office supplies. It seemed, it was a little out of sync where it should be. I sat down with my administrative assistant, we went over everything. We looked at everything that we've been purchasing. We actually decreased it this year by $1,500. $50 increase in postage, unfortunately, that has gone up. We do a lot of mailings.
I got it.
There's a $500 increase to ammunition and
96.
taser cartridges. You'll see that there's 20 officers. It's roughly $1,221.50 to qualify them for their taser, and it's roughly $2,778.50 to qualify them in their firearms. The last is other. The police cruiser, that is pushed off the capital expense. That's gonna be on an article at the town meeting, hopefully. Payment for the station project, that's also pushed off. And the police interceptor annual lease is moved to capital.
Great. Thanks, Chief. Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks for fixing the supplies. That was me last year.
You're welcome.
You're the best.
No, I think the budget was well put together, and you have enough supplemental to understand a lot of this, so I'm comfortable with your budget.
Thank you.
Advisory? Yes.
I got one question. I was reading ahead, and under the Board of Health or Development Services, it has a notation that the budgeted stipend for the animal barn inspector
Yes,
is now on the police department budget.
yes.
Does that show up? Is
That's
that
the
included,
ACO, yep.
The animal control?
That's within the ACO.
That's in
Yes.
there now?
Yep.
Okay. I know it used to be there, and then it got changed, and so it's back.
That's gonna be part of the Winchendon contract.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for the chief?
Mr. Chairman, while the chief is before you, I'd like to ask you to turn to tab 5, page 279. First, again, subject to this board's final decision, the recommendation that I have made, I guess, the track that we've been headed on, was for the meals tax to support a 3-year lease for the cruiser and the 1-ton at Highway, supplemented with some cash to buy it down to where we're comfortable the meals tax would hit. The thing that is important, I think, to point out on 279 is the struggle that you're going to have. The plan is to try to buy 1 cruiser every year and get 7 to 8 years out of them. You know, right now you have A9 and 11, which were purchased in 2009 and 2011, playing a little bit of tag as to which one's going to die first. The pool has a car 11 dying first, for anybody who, you know, wants to get in on that. And then you have A15, 15 and 237, which were all purchased in the same year, and have something on the order of, as of when this was prepared, 55 to 72,000 miles. So, I mean, we have a plan, but there's a lot of obstacles between here and getting that plan fully implemented. I just want to draw this to your attention, and I'm sure that, you know, your attention will be drawn to that every year, because it will be a struggle to go from where you are today to where you need to be.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Cameron.
what is the, and this is for Carter, do we know what the hardest impacting year is gonna be, the most difficult year to get through budget-wise, as we go through this rolling capital?
I hate to sound really silly, but every single year, you're so far behind.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I get a little frustrated, and I don't mean to. But I don't think the community understands how far behind of where it needs to be. If you can get through this year, you can possibly get through next year, but then probably in 21 and 22, you're gonna have this struggle again.
I think that's what I'm seeing here with this rolling stock, it'll be between 22 and 23 will be the hardest to stretch.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's for this department, and, you know, we've talked about some of the challenges
Yeah,
on
I'm
the other
talking purely on
departments.
the rolling of this cruiser fleet here,
I-
trying to get it into
I
debt
did
swap.
sit with the chairman of the Capitol, and I think I kind of laid out this effort. It's not a great plan. I'm not even gonna call it a good plan, but it's a plan.
It's a start.
It's, it's a start. Doug, do you wanna, you and I spent quite a bit of time going over it, so you could brief your committee?
Right, so yeah, so Carter, you know, looked at what the plan recommended, and then, you know, had some alternative ideas, which were really good ideas. And trying to get everything onto this rolling schedule is where we have to get. So he's done that with the fire department, he and the chief came up with a plan for the cruisers, like we saw back there. We have been projecting in the plan the cruisers for every year, but there have been a few years where we didn't do it. So again, the plan had to get pushed out. And that's where we were talking about that big bubble. The more we push things out, the bigger that bubble gets.
Understood.
We have come to a bit of an understanding. It's not been voted yet. It'll be in front of the light commissioners tomorrow night. I think we've reached, hopefully, an understanding of an $82,000 to $85,000 commitment for the next 5 years. Now, and as how much you pay for electricity goes up, meaning they're giving you less on that side. Unfortunately, that's in the operating budget. The capital will come up to fill that gap. So we're looking at 85,000 a year, plus projects that are of special interest to them. So I'm hopeful that that will help us move forward as well.
Okay. Yes,
I just had a question, how much money do you bring in from like drug seizures and stuff like that?
You're gonna ask that same thing. I saw it on there, so you bought a car with
I was
it,
thinking
so
too,
it must be some
any
hefty
chance we could get a car vehicle again from a drug seizure?
It's really tough question to answer because it's really dependent on what happens.
And who actually makes the seizure?
We have to have a seizure first off. We had a
Thank you,
seizure
Carter.
on a drug raid last year that we actually seized some cash. You gotta understand that the district attorney's office takes half of that right off the top. So whatever it is, they take half. And then because we're in a drug task force, whatever agency assists us in the raid,
You get a piece of the pie.
they get a piece of the pie. A lot of times, however, they'll just forego it, unless it's, like, we seized $1 million, then they can be like, where's mine? But if it's a small amount, they'll be just like, okay. We also did seize a car. Now, that car is going into the pool with the task force.
Okay.
So that's where a lot of the undercover cars come from for these task force members. They go to the pool, they check out a car, and that's how they go around and do their undercover operations. We're pretty lucky, we have a connection with one of the state individuals that do their surplus auction vehicles. We always put a call into them, see what they have, and they usually let us go and get a vehicle before it goes to auction. So we've been pretty lucky with the last two that we've gotten from them. And I think the last car only cost us $1,200.
And then when we sell it, the proceeds have to go back.
Yeah, it's gotta go back in, because we purchased a drug account and then the proceeds go back into the drug account. I think we only made like $300 last time.
And then there's this very inconvenient thing, I'll show you my ACLU card sometime, called due process.
Yeah.
I do
Oh
think,
darn.
yeah, I do think you may find that the statute at some point gets amended to where you actually have to be convicted before we can seize all your stuff. I know that
Oh,
really gets
darn.
in the way, but there is that.
any other questions for the chief?
Thank you.
Well put together, thank you.
Before the chief leaves us, we have some modestly good news.
He got
Although-
a car?
No, police
No, but we-
officer.
We do have them on the Price is Right list of attendees.
The price is right.
So,
Oh, my lord.
Me too.
when I first got here and we did the 2017 budget, you instructed us to move off of a net-based budgeting. That is, you had been, if you had the Council on Aging, you had portions of their budget over in a revolving fund. So the budget didn't reflect those costs. Dispatcher, if you were planning to try to use money towards training them or paying their salaries, we took it out of the chief's budget. And we caught a couple of those, but I didn't realize that the school district was paying you $32,000, of which you pay 85%, towards the SRO. So I actually caught this the other day when I got a question about, geez, I'm not sure we're billing that correctly. So the chief and I chatted, and he was like, yeah, geez, we do miss that, because we fully funded in 18 and in 19 the SRO. So the 32,000 really should have been general revenue. So the idea is, I've given you a set of budget, proposed budget amendments. They're all numbered, they have an A on them, so you can see it's amended. And again, this is my recommendation, nothing's final until y'all adopt.
Can we get another police officer?
I can give you a
Just
police
put it in it
officer, another police officer out in the street, but you're not gonna like where I would suggest getting the money from. No, what you get is a chance to
Disrespect the
restore
fire department.
some of the cuts to the police department that went a little bit deeper than perhaps I would have liked to go, and you now have an additional $22,000, give or take, that you can give to the school district, or you can use for other things inside your budget. And I went through the restorations with the chief, and I think he's agrees that those would be good restorations.
Yes.
So, the budget would be positive around 22,300, if we put the grant, the so-called grant, into general revenues, even after the restorations of these $9,000 or so of the chief's budget. My apologies, I missed it last year. I didn't realize you were getting that money.
Sorry.
And these numbers don't reflect, Carl, these numbers don't reflect the future contract rates, because the police department's going through the.
No, that's a reserve set aside.
Okay, there is,
to
okay.
Cover the potential costs.
Yep.
Of a CBA. Those may or may not be insufficient, because we haven't commenced bargaining yet.
Understood.
I have to have something in the budget so that we weren't sitting there at the fall town meeting, or the next annual, trying to figure out where to find this money. So I did put a reserve aside.
Yes, Chief.
If I could expand on the SRO money just for a second.
Sure.
As we all are here today, we see that the town is moving in a positive direction. What happened with that money was how this town was run previous. Your departments, and I saw it firsthand, we operated on our own. So when that SRO agreement was worked out, that was pretty much just the chief of police at the time, Donnie Santos, and the superintendent came to an agreement, and we got money from the school. It didn't go through the board of selectmen, it didn't go through how it probably should have been properly done. We had, in doing the COTFAST grant through the federal government, we had 5 government numbers, DUNS numbers. A town should only have 1. That's because each department was operating on their own, going for their own grants and their own money. I, for one, I've had to go through 3 different town managers, how we do budgets and everything like that, and I think that this town is moving light years ahead. I know we have a lot of trouble coming up financially again, but I think we're running a good ship now. And I appreciate it.
Right, good news to hear.
Thank you.
What's
I
that?
would second that.
A second on the back, I like it. Any, Fire Chief, anything else for the chief? Good, anybody else? You good? Thank you, Chief. Thanks for coming in, appreciate your time and efforts.
Thank you, Chief.
More traffic stops.
I'd like to touch very briefly on emergency management. It's on page 107, it's the same budget as last year, with one difference. Last year, there was 500 and some odd dollars for Rich Curtis to maintain a one-call system that he could use for his CERT volunteers and others. And he purchased that because you didn't have enough room in the Code Red system. You got a metered system using Code Red. As the chief said, I think you could make, we figured at best, 6 calls in the course of a year. So by moving to the Connect TY, Director Curtis and his team will have unlimited access now. Certainly we always have to be careful not overload when we're connecting with people. But that money was taken out of his budget. So between the 6,000 we were paying for Code Red, the 500 and change that we were paying for the emergency management's one-call system, we're gonna have a vastly superior product that we can offer your customer in Phillipston for only $1,500 more a year. Other than that, the budget is, as Director Curtis submitted, with the exception of a vehicle. The Capital Committee recommended, and I concur, that we try to find some other means of solving his needs.
Right, and I believe it might have been, after we submitted our report, but, the, Highway Department, or DPW, is, very interested in having a conversation with emergency management about scheduling the use of one of their vehicles. So, a lot of the time, emergency management stuff is done in the evenings or on a Saturday or Sunday, when there's a truck at the highway that'd be unused at that time. So, he, is interested in having that discussion with them.
And what I like to do is to, make sure that the board is aware of things departments requested that I haven't necessarily recommended, but I do want you to at least know what the department requested and what my reasoning was in not recommending, and I think we owe you that on behalf of the department heads. So those are the three departments that we had before you tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Advisory Committee, you have anything on the emergency management?
There's not really much there to.
No, it's $1,000 budget, I mean,
Mr. Chairman, I do have a
Yes.
question or a statement regarding the revenue projections,
Mhm.
page 16 on the package.
page 16?
If you do recall, we had made a request, suggestion, whatever, some changes to this section. We had asked that we modify some of the prior year actuals, 2013 to 2017, to reflect what has been confirmed through the audits. And I know these numbers are the same as what we used last year, so nothing's been modified. And I'm just wondering, what's the reason we can't go with what's been signed off on as the actual revenue numbers that have been also published in the special financial report?
It was a simple matter of staffing time and priorities for the use of that staffing time.
We'd also asked if we could add expenditures and any other financing sources and show the net fund balance for each one of those years. We just thought that was useful information that, again, would tie back to, some of the other information that has been made available to the public.
I'll revisit that with Paul. Again, it's a matter of staffing resources and the priority for that
Right.
staffing. We didn't include the surplus.
Well, I will show it.
I'll have a conversation with Paul and see if there's, and with Kelly, and see if there's some things that we can add without a great workload.
Yeah, it didn't look like it was a lot of modifications needed to be done, it's just again, for the sake of consistency.
Yeah,
of the
we'll
information.
check.
Okay.
What was that in
I just
last month?
keep us in the loop on that, Carter.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
So the other, thing that was on the budget tonight was, I don't know when you want to start the warrant review, but the larger issue really comes out of the meeting last Wednesday night.
Yes.
With the school district. First off, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we're much further ahead than we were last year. Dr. Cassidy had a draft budget to me around the last week of January. That one called for $750,000 increase. I pushed back, told them we had 150, and so that brought them down to 2.8%. And we had the joint meeting. When have you done that before? I don't know when the last time was that you did that, and I think that's a good thing.
Yep.
You had an opportunity to have that discussion, and you now have a couple of weeks to be working, as opposed to, last year when the first week of April, we got a new number that we just hadn't any clue was coming along. So you have the public hearing coming up on the 21st of March at the schools. I think it's important that over the next 3 weeks, you develop an approach to it, and that there's a good delegation of folks that are there on the 21st. I truly encourage you to have it be calm rational, fact-based, you know, and the problem isn't with their 2%. I think everybody would be happy to give them 2.8. The challenge is the state doesn't give them much. And so our increase is 9%. The increase they want from you is a multiple of about 1.5, given on how you look at the numbers, of everything. So we budgeted 150, they'd like 500. Sounds like my wife's checkbook. You know, so I think it needs to be calm, it needs to be rational, it needs to be fact-based. I have told the doctor I'm buying a new bucket to go and give my bucket speech, because there's only so much money in the bucket. At the end of the day, there's only so many dollars in the bucket. But I would first ask these two boards to reschedule the meeting of the 21st, so I can get that posted. Ideally, we could pull it forward to that Tuesday night, the 20th.
Can we do it after, since we'll have the school numbers on the Wednesday? Would that be possible? Or would it be,
Yeah, I
which way would be either?
no, Holly's ordered me a cot today. That's gonna work for my 5 days a week here.
Yeah, stop.
I don't know if you're gonna have anything the next day. I think that you're gonna need some time to absorb what happens on the 21st. And the school budget may not vote that night. The school board may not vote that night. So Thursday night, Tuesday night, either way, we need to move the meeting. 'Cause you really need to have a good delegation there on the 21st.
And we have a meeting that Monday too, correct?
No.
You have a board meeting, a regular business meeting, no, that, you do have a meeting on the 19th.
On the 19th, we do.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, Public Works.
Yep, and then we'll have one on the 20th, then we got the school meeting on the 20th and the 21st.
I mean, fortunately,
It's our job.
the hope was to be done March 26th. You have up until, you know, you have an extra 10 days, 2 weeks we've built in here.
Okay.
We have to be past,
Yeah.
over
What does
on the
advisory
10th,
board say?
April 10th is
What do
your
you-
drop dead.
What do you think? I can't see.
I
The
think the
Tuesday, okay?
21st, have it on a Tuesday, because
We already talked.
I'll meet on a Sunday, I don't care, but,
I got you.
and not
We
everybody's,
we-
but on the
Does
21st, I
everybody here
agree,
say
we
Tuesday?
just should,
Tuesday, okay?
can't miss that meeting.
Whatever.
Can't send two people.
Monday
there.
through Friday.
Yeah, Tuesday's fine.
Okay, so
Tuesday seems to be
you
good.
all say Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Okay, Tuesday.
And that is,
It's 6:30, is that what we're at?
Yeah, 6:30.
that's the 20th, okay.
So we're gonna get the Wednesday
Wednesday to Tuesday?
meeting, workshop reposted for the 20th
Okay.
of,
Don't we have a meeting on the 14th too?
you do, this is,
But it's not in here.
that's regular business meeting. This is full-blown, full-on silly
I don't have
season.
all the meetings in here.
Right.
So over the next, 2 weeks, however you wanna go
Doug?
about that,
Somebody's ringing.
I think the board needs to talk about where you wanna go, if you do wanna go for a higher number, what that number is, and how we get there. I don't know when you wanna try to have that conversation, but, and we need to start talking about the warrant.
One other thing,
Yes, Joe.
realistically, I mean, for this Wednesday's meeting, just before I walked in the building, the snow total I know the weather people go nuts, but it got bumped up to 16 inches.
Yeah.
So is the
Oh,
plan
I
still
know, I just
to
heard that too.
Wednesday, or
Able
you wanna play that by ear? Because, I mean, the weatherman and the storm can shift to the right 50 miles,
Can
and
we do it
we'll get
tentative on that?
a little bit. I'm just,
We do it tentative on that, so if Wednesday gets real bad, maybe move it to a
No,
Thursday?
because we have to pre-plan it by the open meeting law, so it would either have to be moved or would have to,
I mean, you can leave it, but I don't know if town hall's gonna be open.
I can
how many
schedule
people
next
show up.
Tuesday evening, the 15th, as a snow date.
Yeah, I think, if we
Okay.
get
As
a
a
first
backup.
snow date,
as a backup date.
I'm sorry, isn't the 15th a Tuesday? Okay, the 13th, sorry about that.
Okay.
So I can schedule Tuesday the 13th as a
a backup
Just
in
backup.
case the snow
And
comes
how are we
in
gonna
early.
notify the public, or they can't just cancel right on the calendar date, or the?
I'd love to use the code red, but we can't afford to, so. We'll get it on the
website.
the website. We'll do our best to get
Like snow
notification
date,
out.
but, so,
I mean, I'm just thinking that,
Yeah,
No, that's good.
I got you, because Friday's supposed to be 40 again, so.
yeah, I mean, if you have to cancel it Wednesday morning, when it's gonna snow like hell, you just cancel it,
Yep.
but like
At
you
least we
said,
got the
you
backup
can't
then.
schedule it, you need that 48-hour window.
That's right.
All right.
It's
So we
easier to
do,
cancel than it
what
is
we
to.
would do on Tuesday if we meet, if Wednesday's canceled, we would do the same
13.
groupings that are for the 7th.
Yeah, I'll notify everybody, that's set to be here on Wednesday, the 7th, to, have in reserve, Tuesday, the 13th.
Piece of paper, gotta do my secretary.
I may need to, because of some staffing availability, I may need to juggle around and have Public Works that night instead, but I'll let you know what that would look like.
Okay.
I am meeting with the staff tomorrow to talk about the school and see who might be willing to fall on the sword.
I'll do it.
Yes.
I'm supposed to be here Wednesday night, and I'm in school next week at Amherst, so I won't be available Tuesday night. So do you want me to do my budget now, or would you rather reschedule me? I just thought I would ask. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I really, I wouldn't,
okay.
I wanna keep it hung together. We'll work it out.
Does anybody else have anything else?
Great session.
Rise, do you have anything? Anything else to add?
One last
Yep, go ahead.
The planning board is not recommending a moratorium
What?
on any of the marijuana statutes. I had not put any real time into the marijuana tax. I had worked on the meals tax instead because A, I know we serve food now. I know it's gonna be served on July 1, so I know it's gonna be taxable. And we also didn't wanna put any effort into it if the planning board was gonna recommend a moratorium. That tax, if products were sold, if products were grown, processed in any way, or sold here in town, would be a 3% local option tax. Is that something you want me to look at? I could probably do it fairly quickly.
Of course.
Is that the state recommended, or
Yes.
is that what they said?
It's up to 3%. The
Okay.
original legislation was 2, and the legislature modified it
Maybe I'll
to be up
read
to 3. Those communities I've seen looking at it have gone to the 3%.
Yeah,
3% reefer tax? And-
yeah.
Yeah, and I think the way it's based,
We are a farming community.
we have one,
First, the commission's
Store
gotta
to
get off their
sell.
butt,
it's based on how many liquor licenses you have.
and we need some funding money, some cash, finance it.
So right now, I think we have 3, so we would only be eligible to have one store.
Thank God, I don't think we need more than that.
No, but
Well, the tax is on if the product's grown, processed, or sold at the retail
Right.
level.
Exactly.
Okay.
We only have one grow it.
I think you can have more growers,
Okay.
okay?
Just grow it,
Right.
sell it on the edge.
I think you already probably have a few growers, so.
We can't tax them.
It's not like that doesn't
Sales taxes go up. Yeah.
Nice.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to.
I have a motion to adjourn. I have a motion, a second, any other discussion? I see none. Kim?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane? Doug? Yes. And I vote yes as well.
I'll get the minutes to